So what's your podcast about?
Superheroes.
It's a little geeky, but I think you guys are gonna like it.
Try not to be too geeky.
No, I can't promise that.
Should we begin?
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's the Geek and You Shall Find podcast. And now, your hosts, Kelsey Dickerson, Brad Fay, Kate Fay, and Noah Berlin.
Hold on to your butts.
Welcome to the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by SuperheroFaces. We are so excited to be back with you. So excited that House of Dragon is back. And I am thrilled to be here with Kelsey and Kate talking about it. We miss Brad. Brad has COVID right now, so he's just sitting here rewatching the episode over and over again. He just can't really talk about it right now. He'll come back for episode 2, though. But guys, how stoked are you? Are you excited? Did you love episode 1? What are your thoughts on the whole build up to the season?
So honestly, yeah, so pumped. I've been so excited. And two, it's not even just House of the Dragon. There's so many things that are coming out right now. The Boys just came out. The Last of Us will be out later this year as well. So I think it's just definitely just a great time for nerds, sci-fi, fantasy people right now. And I was pleasantly surprised with the first episode.
Yeah. Did you guys see all of the marketing that they did, particularly in the last week leading up to the premiere, where they had their whole marketing campaign was choose your side, and it was very much who are you picking, Team Black or Team Green? And they had banners from the Empire State. They had Vagar on the Empire State Building and the Brooklyn Bridge, and in Singapore and in Japan and Mexico. They had these banners on these landmarks. It was so cool to see.
It was so awesome. They did such a good job with it. And since it's on HBO, they came out with the Roy family is Team Green, and it's
right.
Well, yeah,
of course they are.
I didn't even see that. That's so cool. And what I really like too is that we were able to we did reactions to each trailer, because they had one that was more Team Black and then one that was more Team Green. And I thought that was even genius in and of itself. But to see the banners on I think it was on the Brooklyn Bridge and all these different places, that is such key marketing. And I think that really brought back the nostalgia of what Game of Thrones was. Where it's everyone was just so excited for it. And it was definitely one of those things that everyone talked about, once an episode came out. So hopefully we can get a little bit of that back with House of the Dragon season 2.
Yeah, I mean, HBO, when they put their mind to it, they spend some money on marketing, which is really cool, because they make some of these landmarks all across the world look like you're in a freaking medieval time or whatever. It just looked so cool, and they really did a great job. The only thing that I was kind of thinking about this is, they made it, which side do you want? Again, we talked about it, Team Black, Team Green, but you watched the same first season that I did, right? Who was Team Green? Who was ever claiming Team Green? It's not it was impartial.
I'm wondering that too. But I mean, besides the Roy family, but other than that, who in the world?
In real life, in season 1, it's not like they made it impartial and some people liked one side, some people liked the other. They made it very clear who the protagonists were and who the antagonists were. And Rhaenyra was very much the main character. The Hightowers were very much the antagonists. So it's just weird that they're putting this whole thing into which one do you choose? Everyone's choosing that. Come on.
I don't know though, because on Twitter, you have a lot of stands for Team Green and Alicent and all that side, you do
what
and
is
so
the reason?
Girl, don't ask me, because I am not on that team. But there are people out there. Or even Noah was sending these beautiful pictures of Alicent and being I don't know, guys. She's a gorgeous person, obviously.
Olivia
so I mean,
Cook,
there could be people out there.
Cook.
She's gorgeous. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, just to kind of recap the ending of season 1 to make sure that everybody's on the same page as we enter season 2 and all the events that we just saw in this episode. But season 1 ends with essentially the start of the Dance with Dragons. The majority of the first season was essentially a prologue to what's to come, to the war to come and the main conflict. And it took you through many years. Some of the actors or some of the characters were played by 3 different actors as time went on, and they had time jumps throughout the season. But the end, it solidifies that Team Black support Rhaenyra, her claim, who is the firstborn daughter of the now dead King Viserys. And then Team Green would be led by Alicent and Otto Hightower, but it's supporting the claim of Aegon II, who is the firstborn son, but younger than Rhaenyra, of King Viserys. So the season 1 ends with the first dragon battle that we see up in the sky over Storm's End. Vhagar, the biggest dragon, chomps down on Arax, killing one of Princess Rhaenyra's children. So it was crazy to see. That was awesome, but that essentially was the lead up to the war. The war has definitively started now, and when season 2 picks up, everyone's kind of reeling from those events.
Yeah, and that literally that recap just gave me chills, like thinking about that scene. Because like when you start watching episode 1 of this season, it does like a really good recap, and like that scene where Vhagar is just over Arax is just like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And then that even like, I mean, we'll talk about it later, but that just leads into the scene where like Rhaenyra and Syrax are both grieving their children, like, you know what I mean? Because I learned that Arax was like a dragon of Syrax, like, you know what I mean, like came from Syrax. So it's like, oh God, it just makes it like double heart-wrenching.
Yeah, crazy. Well, before we get into the episode as a whole, a big thing that happened was they changed the opening credits. And see, we predicted at the end of last season that it would be a new theme song, but we thought that it would still be the same opening credits with the blood coming down on King Viserys's model of the city or whatever it was. But no, they completely changed what the opening credits were, and they kept the theme song. So we were kind of right, but also definitely wrong. So, what did you guys think about the new opening credits? Did you prefer last year's or the last season's? Did you prefer this one?
I thought it was really cool. I mean, the tapestry is like very different from what they did on Game of Thrones and then the first season. Like it's just so different than anything that they've ever done. So I thought it was like really neat and unique. And I love how it told the story of kind of where we're at now. So yeah, I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and tapestries have such, I wish Brad was here because he'd be able to nerd out on this a lot more,
Yeah,
but
seems like a tapestry guy, Brad does.
He's a tapestry guy, that's for sure. If anyone knows Brad, puppets and tapestries. No, but they do have such an important part of history. Like, no matter what dynasty or like, what era that you're in, like tapestries are how they were able to tell these stories and to be able to tell the history in a very literal, physical way. So I think it was great. I still wish they would have come up with a new theme song.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The Game of Thrones song is a Game of Thrones song, and like so it throws me off from like I don't feel like you're in House of the Dragon. Like, you know what I mean? It feels really weird, and it almost feels like a marketing ploy in that way to try to get like more interest and like to make you feel like it's Game of Thrones when it's not. Even though it's like related to it. But I agree. I thought it was really great. And honestly, if they keep it up so like every season has like a new opening, I think that would be a great thing to look forward to.
Yeah, so what I think, or at least what I read, is that every episode, it's as the story evolves and different things happen to different characters, every episode, kind of like old Game of Thrones, where you would travel to different locations in Westeros or Essos or whatever. This, as the story progresses, will continue to evolve as well, which I think is pretty cool. And, it's a tapestry, but similar to the other one, like the tapestry starts being stained by blood with everything that they see, it slowly gets stained by blood. And you see basically the events of the entire story and everything that came for House Targaryen before this, where it starts with the doom of Valyria. You see Aegon's conquest. You see the coronation of King Viserys at the Grand Council, and Rhaenys is there with Corlys. Then you see what happened in episode 8 of this past season, where they all had dinner together. The whole family had dinner together, the Greens and the Blacks, and for a second it looked like everything was going to be okay, and then it wasn't. And then you see, again, what we talked about before with Vhagar and Aemond killing the dragons Arax and Prince Lucerys Valerion, which really kicked off the war. So that's where we are now. And I bet for the next episode, we'll see the things that happen that we're going to be talking about right now in the same tapestry, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, super looking forward to that. And it will be really cool to see how it evolves. And honestly, I need to go back and rewatch it because I was a little distracted. I was watching with some other people, so we were talking a little bit more. So now that you guys have pointed that out, I definitely want to go back and rewatch.
It's really cool to analyze it. I was reading a whole thing about it where they showed every picture of every part of it, and they kind of gave a description of it. It was really interesting. Well, without further ado, let's get this episode started. So we are going to start with the MVP, the most valuable player for episode 1 of season 2. Kelsey, I'm looking at you first as you're drinking your water. Sorry about that. Who do you have? Who do you have as
Hydrating
your
queen.
MVP?
Okay, this is really gonna come as a shock because we just talked how we're all team black, and I still am very much. And this was actually, as I was thinking about it, this actually kind of shocked me too. But my MVP for episode 1 is actually Aegon, King Aegon. He was very Bernie Sanders, give everyone goats, like whatever you want. And that was very surprising for me. Which obviously you see Otto come in and be Otto and be like, so can't do that. Can't give everyone everything that they want. But I think it really showed because like in the first season, you see him as this like crazed weirdo maniac type character. And then we're seeing a softer side of him where he could potentially be a great king. If like maybe he could like be able to get that balance of like, okay, I want to be able to care for my people and then also like, be able to make good decisions and like not be too crazy. But I saw a lot of really funny things on Twitter. It was like Oprah being like, you get a car, you get a car. And it was like, that was King Aegon in like the first episode. But I really appreciated seeing that side, as well as like, he was trying to incorporate like his son into like the meetings, even though his son is like 4 or very young or whatever. But you just saw like that side of him that we didn't see in the first season, where he seemed a lot kinder and softer, almost like a good dad, kind of, sort of, almost like a good king. I definitely think what has happened, the ramifications of that scene that we're going to talk about later, is probably going to be the tipping point for him because we all know that Targaryens can be crazy. But yeah, that's my MVP for first episode. Very shocked.
What do you think about that, Kate?
He cracked me up this episode. Like I was laughing so hard at just like his facial expressions when he was talking to Helena about like, yeah, okay, chick.
It's like, so where is he?
Okay, and he said something about like, oh, she's very mysterious queen, isn't she? Like to all the maidens or whatever. And then when he was like talking to the townspeople on the throne, like you're saying, like, you get cheap, make your weapons, we'll pay for them. It was so funny. It reminded me of like, I just took a new position at work and I feel like I don't know what I'm doing. So I'm just like, yeah, go ahead and do that.
You get PTO. Everyone gets PTO.
It sucked that in the first season, he just was so terrible. He was like raping handmaidens. He was fathering bastards everywhere. He was going and betting on children fighting pits. Like he just was like not redeemable at all in the first season. And in this one, like he came across as pretty likable. And I put him as one of my honorary mention MVPs because I'm just like, are they really going to try to make me like this guy? Like he was out there, being kind to the small folk. Like he was giving them what they needed, and Otto kept trying to just shit on what he was trying to do. But yeah, I was like a little mad, but I liked him. And the funniest too was when they're like, and now here comes the king of the Andals, Aegon the Magnanimous. And he's like magnanimous. He's like, nobody knows what magnanimous means. Like, did you guys look that up? Maybe I'm just stupider than everybody else, but I had to literally Google what magnanimous means.
Isn't it like bigger than life, or what is?
No, it's like
very like giving, right?
It's like like generous and like doesn't take any slights. Like, why did they call him that? But that was funny.
You know what though? When they were saying all those things, it reminding me of all the names that like Daenerys ended up having towards the end, like, you know what I mean? So I was like, that kind of it kind of reminded me of that. I was like, okay, I kind of like that callback.
But at the end, when I guess it was towards the end when he's just like getting hammered on the Iron Throne with his friends, and they're like, you can do whatever you want to do, and he's like, well, what should I be called? They're like, the Dragon Cock. But he was like having fun with his boys, like it was nothing bad. But yeah, he was an honorary mention for me.
I will say, like, I do think they did that purposefully because, like you guys were saying, like Team Green just was so unredeemable, unlikable. It was very clear that they were the antagonists. Like, I think they added stuff like that to try to make us be like, okay, well, I mean, both sides.
I agree with you, but I think that's good. Like, it should be more it shouldn't be as cut and dry. Like it shouldn't like that's why Game of Thrones is so good, because the characters are gray and sometimes you don't know, like, should I be rooting for this guy? Like even like this guy is like really bad and not really redeemable, like I'm starting to root for him. And I think they need that on both sides. So Kate, was Aegon your MVP too, or did you have another one?
No, I kind of, it's a little bit of a cop out, but the MVP for me was the acting. Like everybody was just so good. And my absolute favorite, I mean, Rhaenyra is amazing. Like we all love her, but she said like 2 words in this episode, yet I just like my heart broke every time she was on screen. So Emma Darcy was phenomenal.
Yeah, they killed it. They said one line in the whole episode, and they just killed it. But similar to that though, also kind of a cop out. I have 3 options for MVP. My main one is Ramin Djawadi, the guy, the composer that does all the music, because from the first scene, when the episode opens and I hear a song and like I recognize it, but I couldn't place like what it was, but I knew it was never in House of the Dragon before. And I'm like, oh shit, that's the Winterfell theme. Because like Brad explained in last season how all the characters, all the like kind of locations have their own theme song. And it was the music from Winterfell, from the North, from the Starks. And so you hear that, and you just hear like the guy who's narrating, who ends up being Cragen Stark, his northern accent talking about honor and duty and all this, and I'm just like, whoo! Like I was just so in from that one moment. I was completely nerding out, and it was just like all due to the music, and I think it was so effective with how they chose to start this season and get people wrapped back into it that were big fans of Game of Thrones. And my other one was Aemond, and the reason I say Aemond, it's really hard for me to say that. It is. It's really hard for me to say, but it's because we ended last season and we're thinking like, okay, he's gonna get into trouble. Like people are gonna be pissed. He started this war, and like he goes back and like there's really no repercussions. Like Alicent's mad at him for a little bit of the episode, but it's really no one gives a shit, and everyone is recognizing him as the best fighter on the green side and his dragon as the biggest badass. And Otto tells him earlier, he's like, you two together are the single greatest power in the realm. And so he just is kind of getting his flowers in this episode with really no repercussions for all the bad things that he did. And so I think that he probably took a W. He got the win in this episode.
I will say that was like pretty, like as a viewer, it's like obviously they're gonna like on like that side, they're gonna do whatever they can to like say like, well, we're right and like you didn't do anything wrong, whatever. But yeah, they basically chalked it down to like, oh well, like boys will be boys, and like this was just like an unfortunate. I don't even know if it's even like an unfortunate thing. It was like, oh, it just happened, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was like a little crazy to me. But I think that was really reminiscent of like the first season too, where Alicent would do so many mental gymnastics to be like, oh, this is how it has to be, and like, you know, Otto's influence and stuff like that. So that definitely drove it home of them being like, we do not care that we literally just chomped your youngest son.
Yeah,
like
you can't look at the things that happen. Like we are where we are, and we're gonna move forward, and we're gonna spin this however we need to spin it.
crazy.
Yeah, I actually wrote down the quote of when Alicent and Otto are talking, and she's like, yeah, it was really vicious. And he goes, it was the caprice of youth. And I was like, fuck off. Like, you killed somebody. You can't just be like, oh, he's young, he doesn't know. Like,
boys will be boys, you know, they just gotta grow up and stuff.
Yeah, that was crazy. Well, with the winners, there have to be losers. So, Kate, I'm gonna stay with you because I feel like you have some very strong opinions of who the LVP for you was this episode.
Along with Twitter really came together over this.
They had your back there, Kate.
Everyone came together. My dude Cheese, he's kicking innocent dogs. You're kicking a dog for no reason.
Who just like showed you the way, basically, too. Like that dog was like chilling, like, let's go, guys, we're going on an adventure.
He's gonna find some rats for you, and you just kick him to the curb. And then also he obviously beheaded an infant. So like that's not cool either.
Yeah, but the dog thing
Cheese.
was much worse. It's funny when you were talking, I forgot that his name was Cheese for a second. So you're like, she, and I like almost spit out my drink.
It's cheese. Their names are Cheese and Blood.
Blood and
Like
cheese.
Blood and Cheese. Yeah. And I was like, when, like we're talking about like a bunch of Twitter reactions, stuff like that. I kept on seeing that everywhere. I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? And I was like, oh, that's the name of the guys. Like, I didn't even put two and two together with that.
Yeah, that was fucking weird.
Right.
Kelsey,
I hate him. He's terrible.
yeah,
Hate him.
he sucked for sure. Did you
Oh
have
man.
the same one, Kelsey?
Well, I will say like he's definitely a contender for LVP, of course. But for me, there's two people intertwined that took this title for me is Alicent and God, I'm totally forgetting his name. Sir Kristen.
Kristen Cole, yeah.
Sir Kristen. What the fuck? Literally, what the fuck? Like, they spent all of season 1 absolutely making Rhaenyra's life a living hell, like basically calling her a whore, and that like she like seduced him and like took like his honor and like all these things, and that she's like a piece of shit, blah blah blah. And then now they're just like fucking willy-nilly, just like fucking he's like in her muff, like just doing like a bunch of crazy shit. Like, like, come on, like, please. And then I will say, as a part of that, I can't say exactly what I said as I watched it. Maybe you can make your imagination. But once, like, that scene happened and they walk into the Great Council meeting, like you just see Otto like follow Kristen, and I was like, what, did he get a whiff of? I know. I was like, well, obviously he knows something that's going on. But for me, like those two, it's like just pieces of shit. Like for that first episode, I was like, please, like it's so also it's like really weird. It's like one of those things where it's like, oh, the guy can't get like the person that he wants, so he's gonna just go for like second best or whatever, like in his mind. Like, and it's just the whole thing is just the whole dynamic is weird to me. But at least you know what? At least it's not incest, so I guess that's a win.
It pissed me off.
That's our bar for this show.
Yeah, I guess.
At least
And
it's
that's not even like nearly
It's not
the
even a
worst thing
bar.
to see. Yeah.
It doesn't matter to me, I guess.
Yeah. I like he's the fucking worst. Like Alicent, I still she did some things which I'm gonna highlight in a little bit, but Kristen Cole, like they're such hypocrites. Like they totally were slut shaming Rhaenyra. He was so mad because he's like, why don't you just leave with me and we could go across the narrow sea and get married? And she's like, I'm gonna be the queen. Like, I'm not gonna fucking do that. And he's like, so you just want me to be your whore? And he was outraged, and then he went and like now he wants her dead and like all this shit. It's crazy, and yet that's literally all he is now to the queen. Instead of being the whore of the queen, now he's the whore of a different queen, and that's all it is, which is just crazy. So the whole time, what about duty? What about honor? Like, where the fuck is duty and honor now?
They're in the bedroom.
Like, it's just so crazy how hypocritical it is. The whole first season, Alicent especially was so like, I'm so prim and proper, and I'm praying to the gods and the seven and religion, and it's like, okay.
And then, so to think about it also, like when it was like the younger actresses in season 1, and it was the night that Rhaenyra went out with Daemon, and like they were about to get it in, but they didn't, and it was the whole thing. And then she came back and banged Kristen Cole for the first time. Okay, so then after that, Alicent goes and confronts Rhaenyra and is like, did you do something with Daemon? She's like, no, I didn't. I swear I didn't do anything with Daemon. Alicent finds out about the tea, and then Alicent confronts Kristen Cole, and Kristen Cole's like, yeah, I did it. I had sex with her. And they judged her so bad for that. And like, that's what I mean, it was a direct relation of that to a direct correlation of that happening to Alicent walking into the wedding with the green dress, and then everything kicked off from there. It was like, that was literally, she came in with the green dress because she felt betrayed by Rhaenyra, because she banged Kristen Cole, and now that's what she's doing.
I'm like, fuck off.
And then I noticed
obviously still like harbors a lot of resentment.
Oh, for sure.
Like the way that he was saying she's like a cunning spider, like pulling people into her web. But Alicent has a good heart.
Yeah, she has a gentle heart. Yeah, one thing that I watched it again just now before recording this podcast, and there was something that I really noticed during exactly what you just described, Kate, in that scene where when Aemond and Kristen Cole are talking, and that was another reason I'm just like, fuck these two guys together are like boys. Like, fuck them both. But they're talking, and Kristen Cole is basically making excuses for Alicent, and he's like, Rhaenyra lured her into her trap, into her web. She's a cunning spider, and she intoxicated her years ago. This is not her fault. And I'm like, hold on a second. He's literally talking about himself. Like, he's saying he's talking about Alicent, but he's really talking about himself. Like, he's making excuses for his actions, that he got lured into Rhaenyra's trap and got intoxicated, and it's not his fault. Like, he's saying it about Alicent, but he's talking about himself there.
Absolutely. And I will say, okay, as LVP as they are, so obviously this isn't like show related, but like on a personal note, they seem like they have a lot of fun, because I saw on Twitter that like for that scene that like do you guys know what a merkin is? It's basically, yes, it's basically like a wig for your vagina. That used to be like a very popular thing. So it's like,
Wait. What?
It's like a wig for your vagina. Like, it's like a wig. Like, so instead of like, so it's like extra bush, basically. So Alicent or Olivia Cook, like for their very first scene, like put one on, and that the whole like crew was like,
where do you get something like that?
I don't know, online. I don't know, Amazon. Look it up.
Online?
Look it up.
I'm sorry, my mind's a little blown.
Yeah, so when they went to go film that scene like that, he audibly like screamed. He's like, ah! Like then that like the whole crew was like cracking up.
Did she wear it because she was like in character, or she wore it like just to mess with him?
I think that's like a joke. It was like a joke. Yeah.
A merkin? There's a name for a wig?
Yeah,
like hold on, like a wig or like a toupee?
Kind of, yeah.
Like a toupee.
Yeah. It's because, so what happened, okay, so the origin of this, I'm ashamed to know that I know this, because I was very fascinated when I first learned about it a long time ago. It's because like back in the day when people had like lice and stuff all the time, they would shave, but like they liked having vagina hair. So that's where merkin came. You're welcome. You're welcome.
I did not think I was going to be talking about that tonight.
I will say that it's very unexpected, the things you learn because of House of the Dragon. I thought magnanimous was going to be the one thing that I learned from this episode, but apparently there are other things. So you're welcome if you're listening to this as well and you didn't know about that like I didn't. Any other honorable mentions for LVP or anything that you all got for that?
I'll say some, like one of the LVPs for me was that a lot of this like didn't make sense. Like a lot of them like getting into where they like to get to that scene didn't make sense. But we can talk more about that when we actually get into that scene.
I'll say one more thing about your boy Cheese, Cade, is that not only was he an LVP because he kicked the dog, but like remember where Daemon was talking to him and he's like, hey man, I hear you have some debts that need to be paid and you've got an intense knowledge of the tunnels and the underground of the Red Keep. And he's like, I know the Red Keep tunnels better than I know my own cock, or something like that, which was just a wild thing to say. But said that, it's like, okay, cool, like this guy can get through everywhere. And so they, they're sneaking around, whatever. Then they get to a certain point. It's like, okay, how do we get upstairs? And he's like, oh, I don't know how to get upstairs. Like, wait, what? Like, that's the whole reason you're fucking here. And he's like, oh no, the royals live up there. That's off limits. He's like, yeah, we know the royal. We're going there to kill the fucking royals. What did you think? What did you think this job was? Like, you had one job.
I have a lot to say about all of this.
He just sucks.
Jeez, goodness gracious. All right, so one more LVP that I had was Tyland Lannister. Lannisters are just easy LVPs for me, but for this one specifically, he was like beefing with the 4-year-old kid. And, like, I
forgot about that.
So, like, he was getting like run over by this kid. This kid was just like, he was trying to do his job. Like, he was just sitting there at the small council meeting. He has an important position. He's the master of coin because the Lannisters are rich. And like the kid was just like stealing his little, like, we don't even know what that is, but the little ball off the table, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And so he basically was just, the kid was bothering him the whole time. And they just kept messing with him about it. And so the king is like, oh, is the heir to the throne bothering you, Sir Tyland? It's like, no, of course not. Everything's fine. Like, no, I think he wants a pony ride. He's like, how about you make the master of coin your noble steed or your royal steed? And like he was gonna do it. He was gonna do it. Like,
of course he was.
And it was funny because to me, that was a scene from Succession. And like literally the king,
The hot dog
it wa-
scene.
yeah,
Four on the
like they were
floor.
about, yeah,
Four on the
literally,
floor.
he was gonna make
Four on
Tylen
the
play Boar
floor.
on the floor with cousin Greg right after this one. It was just wild. It was funny. And the funniest part about it too is that like he was just getting shit on. He's getting demeaned, Lord Tylen, because this 4-year-old, and he was gonna get up and do it. And finally, Alicent's like, listen, there are important matters to discuss, despite Lord Tylen's interruptions. Like he's the one that's like breaking all it. So I thought that was very funny, and he just looked like a fool. So he was my number one LVP with Cheese coming in as the honorary mention.
You know what? That's a good one because that whole scene was
That was
so
funny.
like, oh, like you know what I mean? Because it's one of those things that just shows the power. And I forgot when I was talking about what a good person Aegon was. Like, so that was like a definitely like a little look into like, you know, his personality as well, of being like a little brat. But I think like going back to that little ball thing, isn't that the thing where it's like whoever has it, like it's like kind of their turn to like speak or whatever?
But they
If
all
I'm
have
remembering.
I
Oh,
think
they
it's
all
like
each had one. Oh, it's to make sure that it's like to show, I think that you're there or something
show
like
that
that.
I
It's
think
like
it's like
your
an
own.
attendance or something.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I didn't read that anymore.
Also,
That's the only thing that makes sense.
murder weapon for Lord Beesbury.
Oh yeah, good memory. Beesbury. Yeah, that guy
I
went
just
out.
watched it. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kristen Cole actually
He
killed
just
him.
shoved his head down into that thing.
Yes.
Yeah, that was bad.
God.
Yeah. But so anyway, LVP, that was good. We touched on part of this already, and I have a feeling there's going to be some carryover. But our next category is the cringe moment, the sus moment of the episode. So, Kelsey, start us off here. What were you cringing about when watching episode 1?
I mean, the LVPs just go hand in hand with the cringe moment.
They
Like
do.
when it's like Allison is sitting there, it's like, you know, very clear something's going on. And then you reveal it's Sir Kristen going down on her. And you're just like, Jesus fucking Christ. And then after like that really crazy scene where like, you know, like, was it, what's her name? Lanier, how do you say her name? Elena, thank you, Helena. Like where she like runs into the room and they're just full on getting it on, like no like regard for anything. Yeah, it just seemed very unnecessary and I hated it and it was very cringy to me. But I will say, like going off like the scene of like this pony riding stuff, that was really cringe too. Just because like you just feel that like embarrassment and like like you know what I mean, like for them.
If
It's
it
like
was a
such a
character that
weird.
I cared about, I would have cringed, but I thought it was funny because I don't give a shit about Tywin Lannister.
How dare you?
Or his twin brother Jason Lannister. Remember that?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Jason and Mason.
What about you, Kate?
Well, we're gonna talk more about it, of like the scene with like blood and cheese and you know everything that happened with Jaehaerys. That was definitely my cringe moment, but I mean I'll hop on to Kelsey's bandwagon. Like that is, it's just like
Yeah, you will.
Kind of like Queen Allison was hopping on.
Mhm.
I'm not gonna say it, I think. But now you guys made me lose my train of thought.
Sorry.
But no, it's just like it was just so the second I saw them like getting it on, I'm just like I turned to Brad and I was like, what the hell? After this whole first season where they're just like so all about their righteousness and now they're
Hypocrites, man. Hypocrites.
hate it.
What about you? Was that cringy for you as well, Noah?
No, man, because Allison was first and foremost. Really, my cringe moment was kicking the dog. That was the thing. I didn't put him as my LVP really, but the cringe, as soon as he did that, you know how we're all the same. We're all friends. We are like-minded. And like, yeah, we're going to talk about it later. I don't want to spoil it necessarily, but the scene that happened later was horrifying. I still cringed more when the dog got kicked.
Yeah, because it was just unnecessary. Like, you know what I mean? Not saying that killing a baby's necessary, but like, yeah, it's just like, why? Like, this guy was your homie this whole time. What the fuck?
One thing I noticed when I watched it the second time, because the first time you're not really, you're paying attention, but there's other things that are more important. And then, you meet this guy Cheese when Damon is talking to him and he's talking about, whatever it is that he's talking about. But when I was watching it the second time, I realized that he was in the episode 2 other times. We see him like catching rats 2 other times earlier in the episode. So earlier on when it was right after Kristen was going down on Alicent, and she helps him get dressed, and he's like, the king is expecting us in the small council, so they walk in together in the small council. Before they walk in, you see him catching rats in that room, and then they walk in and he walks out. And then later on, when King Aegon is on the throne, he's talking to the small folk and giving them whatever, pulling Oprah and giving whatever. He is also there in the corner catching rats during that time too. So like it's interesting. Like I never thought anything of it the first time, but once you kind of know, who he is and what's going on, I definitely thought that was kind of interesting.
So then his name makes sense now. Cheese.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, I think that a lot of it is with the book Fire and Blood, and which none of us have read. So again, we don't have to worry about spoilers there. But a lot of it's not like official accounts. It's not like George R. R. Martin writing from the perspective of these people. A lot of it is hearsay and stories told by people. So like a lot of times you don't really know if the narrator or the person telling the story can be relied on. And so like whoever told that story, I don't think they knew the names of the people. So like that person telling the story just called them Blood and Cheese. And so that's what ended up in the book, and that's all we know, which is just an interesting way of doing it. But yeah. Anyway.
Very interesting. Yeah, that is really interesting. Makes sense.
So again, we'll get to more of an in-depth analysis of that scene a little bit later, but let's go through the rest of the episode. And starting with the opening scene, I touched on this when I gave my MVP towards the music anyway, but just I thought the idea for the season to open on a sweeping shot with a raven flying, with the Winterfell music and the Stark music, and we got to see Winterfell and we got to see the wall, and it just was I just thought it was a brilliant decision to start and immediately get people immersed back into the world. And even people that might not be so sure about House of the Dragon, but they love Game of Thrones, I feel like that was an easy way to just immediately bring them in. The guy, Lord Cragen Stark, he seems freaking awesome. He tells the story about his ancestor, Torrhen Stark, who built the wall, I want to say. I could be wrong about that. But he knew how important the Night's Watch was, and really the Night's Watch was basically just criminals, which we see in Game of Thrones. It's just people that instead of losing their life for a crime, they choose to go to the wall and carry out their sentence there. But he said this is not a sentence, this is an honor for House Stark. And so he said that throughout his whole time, every year, 1 in every 10 members of House Stark go to the wall to serve there as a member of the Night's Watch. I just thought that was so cool because you hear him talking in, again, that northern accent about duty, about honor, about keeping oaths, and it's just like, man, I'm freaking in. Like this is exactly it's bringing me back to all the feels of the Stark family and in Game of Thrones. And you even see the huge sword that he has, which is Ice, the Great Sword, which is Ned Stark's sword. That's the same sword that after Ned Stark got killed, Tywin Lannister melted it down and made 2 swords, one for Joffrey and one for Jaime Lannister, of the Valyrian steel sword. And just like seeing all this and seeing the tie-ins between the 2 shows, it's exciting to me. I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah, and that's actually really interesting about how it was like an honor, because I think once we get to Game of Thrones, it really is such a blemish on like, it's like, and you clearly like the Starks haven't been sending someone like, once a year or whatever it might be. So it is really interesting seeing that dynamic and how it's changed so much once like Jon Snow gets to the wall.
Well, remember when Jon Snow, because he was a bastard, like Ned was leaving, Catelyn didn't want him there. And so he's like, okay, I'm going to go. It's going to be noble. This is going to be great. And everyone's like, you're wrong. Like,
yeah, sure, buddy.
Good luck.
Yeah, go have a noble time up there.
Yeah, it's going to be great. I thought that was really cool. And
I really liked how like even back then, like what I mean, like from the very beginning, like they knew there was more stuff out there and that they were waiting for like winter to come or whatever. So it just really shows like the lore of and we have our own opinions about like the end of like Game of Thrones, but like just how long back it goes, like of knowing that winter is coming and that like the Night's Watch was like the first line of defense against it.
Yeah, and he told the story too, which I thought was really interesting, how the older king, so in the beginning, the opening scene of House of the Dragon, you see the Great Council, and it's because King Jaehaerys is old as fuck, and the whole thing is about the succession to him. So anyway, early on, before he was super old, he and his wife go up to the wall and they're talking. He's telling the story about how they're there and their dragons are there. and their dragons were too scared to like cross that boundary of the wall to go north of the wall because they knew something was there. They could feel it, even though the dead still slept or whatever. The dragons would not cross that boundary, which that was also pretty interesting.
God, so good. So good.
I know. And like that was my feeling the first 5 minutes. Like the new credits come on and then it's immediately that. And I'm just like, I'm fucking in. I've chilled. Like this is great. And I'm just thinking I cannot wait to talk about this with you guys.
I will say so far, like I'm more in with season 2 than I was like at the beginning of season 1. Like with that and like, having more of the history shown and like, the Starks and like, all that stuff. Like I think it's like definitely brought me in more because I was like very on the fence about House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I think that season 1, it's hard because you're getting to know all these new characters. Like, the name Targaryen, they have dragons, but like you're getting to know all these new characters. We knew nothing about them. So it's really starting a brand new show. And all the time jumps made it really difficult for them to tell that story. Like, it was a really hard job that they had for season 1. And now that kind of prologue is done and the show is really going, and we already have the familiarity between the characters or with the characters, I think that it's just only going to keep getting better and better.
Absolutely. Well said.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Is it time to talk about that scene?
Well, no, not yet. I got some other.
Not yet.
I want to talk about some more
Jumping
things.
the gun.
So I'll say when they showed the city wall and they see the dragon, they're like, "There's a dragon there! Get the scorpion!" Right? And I'm like, "Oh, the fucking! Are you kidding me?" And I just got pissed off about the scorpions because like they're killing Daenerys' dragon. Like then that was when I was reminiscing about Game of Thrones and thinking like, "What? This is such bullshit," So like it's the two sides of the same coin. In this episode, where I felt so great because of the things that we saw that reminded me of Game of Thrones, and then I felt like shit when I just saw the scorpions. But I thought it was interesting, like, and there's something I want to talk to you guys about with Allison. So 2 things she did in this episode that led me to believe that she's still pretty good. Like, not good, like she's still bad and she's a hypocrite and all this stuff, but I mean I thought this was funny. I literally laughed out loud. She asked if there was a response yet from Rhaenyra about her apology letters that she sent. And the one guy at the small council is like, "Your apology letters about murdering her little son?" Like,
no, they haven't been answered.
No, there has not been a response. Like, what? And she lit the candle for Luke afterwards. So it's like she's not evil, you know what I mean? She's just
playing with I think she's just playing the hand that she's been dealt, which is
too far
we
gone
talked about this. Yeah, and we talked about this in season 1 where it's like first and foremost she is a mom, and that is the path that that was literally laid out for her by her very overpowering father, Otto, who has one goal in mind, and that is to rule the 7 kingdoms. So she is basically like, this brainwashed child that is now a brainwashed adult who did and does probably still very much care about her best friend growing up, and like she has horrible children and like, she's just, I'm doing the best with what I have, and it's not very good.
Yeah, what did you think about that scene in the bathtub when she, the handmaidens were in there and then she's like, "Just give me the sponge," and she like made them all leave and she was being all weird and she was like scrubbing herself, which is just like not a thing that a queen does. Like what did you think about that?
Well, we just learned that like everyone in the castle had been like replaced by like people that Otto handpicked, right? Or who was it? Or that who?
Larys.
Oh, that Larys. Yeah, Larys.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think she's like, I can't trust anybody. She truly is all alone. Because usually in those intimate moments, that's when like, and your handmaiden, usually when you're like a queen, like those are almost like the only people that you can truly confide in about things that are going on, or like they're gonna know more about you and of what's happening, like probably Kristen or whoever, like, you know what I mean? Like all those things that are going on because they're around you all the time. You see it even in like a show like Bridgerton, or not Bridgerton, but like Downton Abbey, where it's like they're set to work for you, but like they become like you're almost like your closest confidant in a way. You know what I mean? So that's what I thought. I thought that she was like, I just can't trust anybody anymore, and I truly am like on my own island.
I went back and forth because at first I thought that she was like maybe ashamed because she hadn't like fully gotten it in with Kristen like in the final scene, but she had already like the earlier scene when he was going down on her. So I thought maybe she was like ashamed about that, and she was like just wanted to clean herself because of that. But I think that makes a lot more sense because yeah, you're right. Laris was talking about how, you know, all their previous servants, like they no longer breathe our air, and he hired all of her staff personally. So I think yeah, she probably just didn't know who she can trust. Where do you fall on that, Kate?
Well, I think it's also probably, I think Kelsey, what you said makes sense. But I think it's also probably like a little bit of symbolism, right? Like going back to what you guys were just talking about how like she does still care for Rhaenyra. And I do think she feels really bad about Luke dying and a mother losing her son. And I think she feels really bad about starting this war. And so I think she just kind of wanted to, you know, the girl is just kind of gingerly like, yeah, let me wash your hand. And she's like, no, like I'm gonna scrub myself clean because
I got
feel
more
gross
dirt than you
about
can
this.
see. Yeah.
Yeah. So kind of subconsciously like trying to like clean herself a little bit.
I like that too. I think both of those are good ideas. Yeah, and how about Laris too? Because like he was only in it for a second, and that guy,
God,
he's
such a
literally the worst.
creep.
But in my opinion, and this is one of my like what to watch fors later on, but he knows about Kristen and Alicent.
Oh,
Because when
absolutely.
the first time we see him, he's like, yeah, I was trying to meet with you before you went to the small council, and your handmaid said you were indisposed. like the way he said it's like, oh, this motherfucker definitely knows.
Well, yeah, and that's exactly why he's like replaced all of her handmaidens and stuff. It's spies for him. It's basic. It's like a page out of Varys's handbook, like you know what I mean, like where it's like little birds and like stuff like that, or like like even Peter Baelish, like Littlefinger, like you know what I mean. They had
Yeah.
spies all over.
And then also the other scene we see him is when he's talking to King Aegon. He's basically planting the seeds there to sow mistrust between the king and his mom and the Hand. And he looks like he's going to try to turn Aegon against Alicent and Otto. So that's going to be interesting. And again, like as a supporter of Team Black, I'm cool with it. Man, create chaos within the Greens. I'm fine with it. But Laris, that guy, whew.
He is cast so perfectly well because yeah, to your point, like you just are so creeped out every single time he's on.
Every time you see his face, you're just like, oh God. Or his little, a lot of times they have it like a wide shot, and you just see his club foot like there. First, I was like, oh God, here we go. Here we go.
It's like,
oh gosh.
ugh.
Well, before we get into that scene, okay, are there any quotes that you guys have that you loved from this episode that might not have to do with that scene? If not, I have a few options, and you can tell me which ones you like.
I didn't write any down this episode.
That's fine. So the first one I got was from that opening scene where I just had chills and you hear Craig Stark in that same accent. He's just like, "The North must stand ready. Winter is coming," and it's like, "Fuck, that's awesome." I really liked Otto's quote to Alicent where he's like, "You must accept now that the path to victory is one of violence." Thought that was cool. I liked our guy Sir Eric with an E, not to be confused with Sir Arik with an A. And when he stood up to Daemon, and he's just like, and Daemon's calling him a traitor, him and his brother, and he's just like, "We swore the same oath to protect the whole of the royal family. So what are we supposed to do when they turn against each other?" There was Rhaenyra's one line in the entire episode, which was, "I want Aemon Targaryen." And then I liked when Aemon too was talking shit about his mom. And he's just like, "Her grace speaks with two tongues." And then Kristen proceeded to go and simp on her. But those were ones that stood out to me. Any ones that you guys loved or anything like that?
I think you covered all the ones that I wrote down. I mean, you already talked about like in the beginning when he said this is not a sentence, but an honor when he's talking about going to the wall. That just like gave me chills. I want Aemon Targaryen. Like that was like the one line Rhaenyra said, and I was like, fuck yeah. And then obviously wrote down, no one knows what magnanimous means.
That might have been my favorite one, to be honest. It's like, as soon as he says it, I'm like, thank you. Fuck, I have no idea.
You're like, me included.
Literally. Well, moving on to that scene, which we've hinted about and talked a little bit about a lot so far. So earlier in the episode, before that scene, Queen Helena has another one of her prophecies. No one seems to take her serious. Everyone acts like she's special needs, and she's the smartest one of everyone. She like I don't know how disconnected she is with reality because she has these dreams and these prophecies that no one takes seriously. But she said, "I'm afraid," and the king is like, "There's no reason to be afraid. Vagar is patrolling. Like they're never going to come for us." And she goes, "No, not of the dragons, of the rats." And then she looks over at the crib of her son, who later is murdered. So it's just funny that like they respond to her with, "All right, weirdo, like whatever, keep talking your nonsense." It's like just please, people, listen to her. Listen to
Literally,
this girl.
after like the dragon comes up and almost burns them all alive, like you know what I mean? Like if Rhaenys would have like just wanted to put an end to everything, like she could have just literally ended all of this and the blacks would be in power. But like yeah, it's like after that, what do you every single thing that this lady is saying, I'd be like, wait, what? Okay, what could this possibly mean? I'd be like, there's got to be like 10 different meanings for this thing
Well,
because like
she's always either like playing with bugs or she's like sewing something. She hardly talks. So when she talks, and you're right, like exactly what you're referring to in the first season, she had the prophecy of beware the beast beneath the boards. And that was, at least we think, makes a lot of sense about the dragon that burst through Meleys with Queen Rhaenys and could have ended it all right there. So yeah, just listen to what she has to say. She's smarter than everybody. She knows what's going to happen. Anyway, so in that scene, it kind of starts with the White Worm, who I thought was dead. Like she helped Otto, and she's like, "You better remember, I'm the one that put Aegon on the throne." And Otto's like, "Yeah, I'll remember."
Oh, that's who it is. Okay, I could not place her, and I was like, I knew she obviously was like a whore, and like
It's
that
like
there was something
Damon's
going
girl
on with her
in
and
the season
Damon.
one.
Yeah, that's Damon's girl. Yes, okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
So she's in season one, she's like doing a power play on Otto. He's like, "Oh, I'll remember." And then right after that, you see a shady looking person in a hood walking away while her whole place burned down. So I thought she was dead because why else would she? Whatever. She's not dead. She's a stowaway. She's heading on a boat to Dragonstone. Why? I have no idea because she didn't go there to tell this stuff to Damon. I have no idea why she went there. Anyway, she ends up giving Damon a tip about a member of the Gold Cloaks, which is the City Watch, and a random rat catcher. There's a lot of rats there, who has a lot of debt, vast knowledge of the tunnels under the Red Keep. And then once Rhaenyra says her one line, "I want Aemon Targaryen," Damon takes it upon himself to make moves. So he sneaks into King's Landing, makes contact with this gold cloak who is Blood, and the rat catcher who is Cheese, and pays them to kill Aemon. And at one point they ask, "Okay, what if we can't find Aemon?" And they don't show what he says, but we're led to believe that he says what the title of the episode is, which is "A Son for a Son." So they sneak through Maegor's tunnels. They pass drunken King Aegon and his friends talking shit. What's his name? Cheese was incompetent, didn't know how to get to the upper levels. Why are you there? He kicks the dog. And then they happen upon Queen Helena. So when they bust in there and they're like, "Who the hell is this?" And he's like, "This is the queen." You know, what's going through your mind at this point?
I'll let you take it, Kate.
I was like, oh shit.
But like, did you think that because the whole time when Damon's talking to these two random guys and it happens so fast, I'm like, Aemon is a badass. Like we know that. Like Aemon's gonna fucking kill this. Like this is not gonna work. Like nothing's gonna happen. Like they're gonna kill these guys and like whatever. I just did not think that any plan. Obviously, we knew Aemon was not gonna get killed by them, right? But I just didn't think anything was really gonna happen because like who are these losers, right? But like, what were you once they got in there with the queen? You know, what were you thinking?
Well, I was just like, are they going to keep looking for Aemon? Like, they're supposed to find this guy with silver hair and one eye. He should be easy to find. Like,
He was
so I
specific
thought
about
that I thought they were going to keep looking. Like, I didn't know that they were actually going to care about Jaehaerys and like figuring out which one to kill for the heir. Like, and then I was like, oh, they're going to kill this baby.
I also was like, where the hell's the Kingsguard? Like, you know what I mean? Like, they're supposed to have people out in front of
the
like their
Kingsguard was getting it
bedrooms.
in.
Okay, but that's for Alicent. Like, you know what I mean? Like, where's the other ones? Like, there's got to be multiple. And even too, like, so since we're talking about the scene in general, like, something that really bothered me this episode was like there were just so many opportunities that either it was like how are they not getting caught, like, or like how it's like, oh, just so like lackadaisical, like once they were like in like common areas, like when you see Aegon on the crown or on the throne, like, just getting drunk and shit. It's like fucking get a bow and arrow and just fucking shoot him right now, like, you know what I mean? And then it's like, or once they were in there, it's like, why not kill all three of them, like, you know what I mean? Like there was a lot of things that obviously it's probably like this is how it's written in the book, but like it's like I just didn't really understand. It's like why not just do all of like both babies then? Like, you know what I mean? It's like why even live one, like leave one? Like I didn't know if he said like son for son, whatever, but like it's like just kill them all, like, and that's just be done with it. Like so a lot of it didn't make sense, and a lot of it like I guess now that you say like the rat, so like Cheese like has been in a bunch of like they're used to him like being like the rat guy, but like the other guy, they don't know who the fuck that
The
is.
rat
Like, you know what
guy.
I mean? Like he's over here doing his rat thing. Like, okay,
Or he
like,
was
you know
like
what I mean?
holding like the rat contraption that caught them
Yeah.
too. So like maybe they like there were so many rats they needed to fucking he needed to call in backup. I don't know.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like it was just like a weird thing that I'm like, wait, like what is happening right now? Like this is I don't know. Yeah, I agree. They had a lot of opportunity to do like a lot more to like the king or even the queen herself. Like they had her.
The only thing I could think of is that like they're poor flea bottom people, like they're not taking sides in the war, like they're not going to do favors and do anything beyond what is asked of them to make the money that they agreed to get as part of that deal, so that's the only thing I could think of. It's
Yeah.
like, no, he told us specifically a son for a son. He said Aemond and or a son for a son. Like that doesn't affect the queen. It doesn't, so he's like, I'm not trying to end this war. I'm not on the team black, so I'm just gonna do what I'm paid to do. That's the only thing I could think of.
That's true, but like then once you see it's so easy to get in there and that guy knows where the hell to go, like why wouldn't that also be like the next plan of attack? Be like, oh shit, you got all the way up into like the
Yeah.
tower where they're all at, like, you know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It's just like this is like one of the differences between like Game of Thrones and like House of the Dragon for me, where it's like House of the Dragon is so just like very black and white and like hits you on the head with stuff, and it's like it just doesn't seem, it just doesn't really seem realistic to me, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Even though nothing, dragons and stuff.
Sure. So anyway, they go in, they meet up with the queen. Cheese has his knife on the throat of the queen, and they can't tell the difference between, I don't know if the kids are twins or just very close in age.
They just look very similar.
Yeah, there's a girl and a boy. They both have long hair, and they're like, "Tell us which one's the boy." And so she points right at one of them, and the first and blood goes, yeah, well, she would never give up the heir, the firstborn son of the king and the heir to the throne. She's trying to trick us, and Cheese, for some reason, can tell based on her eyes or whatever that no, she's telling it true. That is the one. So immediately they go and like you hear the kids screaming, and they're just literally sawing the baby's head off, which again, terrifying. Not as terrible as kicking the dog, but but yeah. So kills the kid. The queen grabs the other child, the daughter, and runs across to her mom, who's getting it in with Kristen Cole. The mom's like, what happened? She sees she's frantic, and she's just completely disassociated from reality. Like I think she has her visions, she has her dreams. She like doesn't really know what's real and what's the dream, and just having seen in front of herself like what she had prophesized, I think just like broke her, which I thought the acting from the actress that played Helena was really, really good there. But so Allison's like, what happened? She just says they killed the boy, which is an interesting way to break that news.
Yeah.
And that's the way that it ended. And so I saw a lot on social media, online, that like it was way more brutal even in the book. And so I don't want to look at ever spoilers from the book, but if something that we've already seen, I was interested. So I went and I read that part of that scene from the book. And basically in the book, Helena and Aegon, they have two boys and a girl. And so they come in the same way, and they're just like, instead of, hey, which one's the boy? They're like, hey, which one of your boys do you want me to kill? And so there's the older one, which is the heir, and then the younger one. And she's like, just kill that one, the younger one, because like maybe he's too young to know what's going on. He's not the heir. And so they say to her, or they say to the kid, the younger kid, you hear that? Your mom wants you to die.
Oh
And
my
then
God.
he looks at the other one, and the other one just chops the heir's head off with one freaking swipe. And that was the way it kind of went down, and she's just in hysterics. So it was super brutal. I don't mind how they did it in the show. Some people are like, oh, they watered it down, they made it worse. I don't think
If
that.
anything, I think like the sawing of a baby's head off is more
I agree
like
with
brutal than like just a chop, like of like a sword chop.
that. I
And
totally
thank God they didn't show that. Like, God.
Mhm. That would have been, I think that would have been way too much.
They could, yeah, they could have. But I think that like
Yeah.
people were hyping this, and I didn't know this, but like after the fact, I'm seeing that people are tweeting that, oh, this scene was supposed, like people were hyping it up like it was going to be the red wedding of House of the Dragon, and like that felt like that's definitely. I mean, no one could argue by saying it was even close to the red wedding, but it still I think was effective, and you see how brutal this war is going to be, and we saw what happened in the finale of last season with Luke getting killed on the dragon, and now we see this, and like it's just going to keep escalating from there. So I mean, it is on. Like there is no more letters of apology. No, that shit is done, and so it's exciting. It's exciting, and I think a lot of people are going to die.
I'm super excited, and not like I didn't see like really any spoilers or anything, but like some of like the reviewers that like got to see the whole season, there was like bits and pieces of them saying, I think it's episode 3 is like it's almost like the Battle of the Bastards. Like that's like it's that level of it. So I'm super stoked to see. I'm gonna brace myself for more dragon deaths, just because I hate it so much, it makes me cry. But I'm super stoked, and I really do hope that they like that the second season like ramps up and it's like more reminiscent of Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
It's gonna be good.
Well, moving on, we have just a couple minutes left. We got to wrap up here. And so let's hear, do you have anything that you want to watch out for? Any predictions or things that really interest you in the season moving forward? Because I could be wrong about this, but I think there's only 8 episodes, not 10 this season.
No.
I know, which is really depressing.
So little.
Oh, some watch outs. I think, yeah, obviously like more of that line being drawn between the blacks and the greens after this. It's a very clear cut, like you can't argue this was an accident at all, like you know what I mean? Which I mean you could potentially with the first, like with Lucerys dying, whatever. I don't think so, but other people do. And then honestly, I think we saw some of the cracks between like Daemon and Rhaenyra in the first season. And so I think that's going to be like something to watch out for as well. And then I'm just really keeping my eye on Larys, and also too them wrapping the Starks into this like in the beginning, and like kind of like planting that seed. I'm excited to see like how that goes in, because Jacaerys was saying like the Starks like are on team black, is what it seemed like, that they were like kind of like putting their oath there. So I'm really excited to see how it all plays out, and then like just being able to like think ahead to like how it affects like what we saw in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, good. What about you, Kate?
It's gonna be so interesting to see where the different like families like end up, which team they go on. Because even if someone's team black, it might be like, well, we're gonna take away this from you if you're not on our side, kind of thing. But I also am super interested. I love the dragons, and I can't wait to see more of them. And I want to see what they do with it, because I think as we were rewatching some of the first season, I think there was some dragon eggs that were happening that Damon harvested. So I'm like, okay, where's that baby? How fast is it growing? Like, is that on team black
And the one
now?
that Damon sang to, remember in the finale, he was singing to that huge one. That's on,
Yeah.
like what's gonna happen there.
Oh yeah, that was another thing. I knew that there was a dragon that was like unclaimed or whatever. That was like a super, super big old one, I think.
That's that one.
Yeah, and I forget the name of it, but I'm like, okay, so is that going to be Team Black as well? So I'm interested in where the dragons are falling on this.
Yeah.
Really quickly, with those dragon eggs, do we think they're going to come into play like for House of Dragon, or do we think those are like Daenerys's eggs that she ends up getting?
No, I think they'll probably.
Think I'm gonna play this.
I'm gonna play it.
I don't know how fast they like grow.
Yeah.
I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, a couple other things to watch for. I just have two. I think these are not prediction. Well, one's a prediction. One, I think that because of the fact that Laris knows about Kristen and Alicent, and he's turning the king against his mom, I feel like Kristen's out of here soon. So that's my prediction. And then we met two new characters this episode that like just seemed a little bizarre how much time they got. One of them was Alan of Hull. He was the one that Corlys was talking to at the ship. He's like, wait, I heard you were the one that pulled me out of my, out of the sea. And like, he just had a long scene. I just feel like that guy we're gonna see him again. The other one was Hugh from the Smiths. He was the one that petitioned the king and was just like, he wanted to be paid because they were making the crossbows and whatever. He wanted to be paid early instead of after the fact. But like, he just, they moved through those things so quickly, and he's just like, my name is Hugh. And like, they give him a lot of time. Like, it's just the way they shot that scene. Like, to me, it screamed that like, this is not going to be a guy we don't see again. Like, I just feel like he's going to show up again. So anyway, that's that. But
Hugh and Alan.
Yeah, Alan and Hugh. If that happens, if both of them end up being like big characters, I'm patting myself on the back. But any final words, final thoughts for episode 1?
If you don't know what a merkin is, go look it up.
Well, now I do because I'm a little upset about it. But yes, don't look it up, people. Don't do it. Take my advice.
No, I think I'm just looking forward. I think episode 1 really set the tone for what we're going to see this season. So I'm super excited, and I can't wait to see all the craziness that unfolds, and hopefully seeing all the little details, like you're saying, all the little rats going all through.
Yeah.
All I gotta say is Team Black for life.
Let's do it. Well, all right, guys, I just got to say this was a lot of fun recording this with you. The fact that we are down 1 of 8 already is, again, depressing because I just love that we do this. I thought episode 1 was great, but again, the community aspect of you guys and the people that listen and watch our podcast and recapping it and having the conversation is some of the most fun aspects of it. But that's going to do it for this episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by SuperheroFaces. Make sure to tune in each and every week as we recap House of the Dragon Season 2. Follow us on social media, subscribe on YouTube and all that, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Geek and You Shall Find podcast, powered by SuperheroFaces. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And follow us on Facebook and Twitter at SuperheroFaces, and on Instagram at superhero_faces.